mistake? Why did aid restart only a few days later?
Again, we would take complete issue with what would some call reporting and others call a hatchet job.
So why did aid start just a couple days later?
I'm saying the reporting is inaccurate, ma'am.
All right. Before we present the evidence and proceed with additional live footage, picture yourself as a Ukrainian soldier trapped under Russian gunfire, anticipating American assistance that never arrives. This isn't due to sabotage or the chaos of war, but rather because one individual in Washington made a mistake. Pete Hegseth's error didn't merely waste time, it resulted in loss of life. When Congress learned of this, Representative Mikie Sherrill confronted him publicly and without compassion.
Both for being here today. Mr. Secretary, your testimony over the last several days before Congress, I've heard you speak about all of your supposed accomplishments from your time at the Pentagon. I have to say, your training at Fox News has let you spin months of dangerous dysfunction and incompetence into catchy phrases like restoring the warrior ethos and increasing lethality. But the truth is, it's really been chaos at the Pentagon under your leadership. You've clearly shown you're unable to manage the Department of Defense, but what I'm most concerned about are three specific areas: your operational incompetence, your managerial incompetence, and your budgetary incompetence. So let's start with operational. According to news reports, in your first week on the job, you got confused in a National Security Council meeting and thought President Trump wanted you to stop all aid to Ukraine. In a well-functioning administration, you would have asked for clarification before making that seismic policy shift, but instead you ordered vital military aid heading to the front lines turned around, costing the U.S. millions of dollars and depriving Ukrainian soldiers of equipment they needed to fight Russia. So, Mr. Secretary, can you explain how exactly you misunderstood such a monumental presidential order?
One of many fake news headlines we've dealt with.
So President Trump told you to halt military aid to Ukraine on January 30th?
As is often the case, highly ideological and very ill-informed reporters love to speculate about things they know nothing about in order to spear President Trump and myself.
So it sounds like actually the reporting is correct, because I will say, if it wasn't a mistake, why did aid restart only a few days later?
Again, we would take complete issue with what would some call reporting and others call a hatchet job.
So why did aid start just a couple days later?
I'm saying the reporting is inaccurate, ma'am.
I don't think that's correct. So let's move on to your managerial incompetence. I think we can see why you misunderstood the president, because you're obviously misunderstanding my questions. Less than a month into the job, you fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, CQ Brown, and the chief of naval operations, Lisa Franchetti, without cause. And to this day, you still have not provided an adequate explanation for removing them. As far as I can tell, you fired CQ Brown because he was black and Lisa Franchetti because she is a woman. So nearly 4 months later, we still don't have a new nominee for Chief of Naval Operations. News reports, and you can contest it, but I'd love to hear your answer, say that you haven't nominated someone because qualified admirals keep turning the position down. So tell me, Mr. Secretary, when will Congress receive your nomination for the next chairman of the next Chief of Naval Operations?
Ma'am, with all due respect, I would suggest not believing every headline you read.
With all due respect, I'd like your nomination. When will we see it?
There is not a single admiral or any military official has turned down a position that's been...
So when will we see your nominee for the Chief of Naval Operations?
In due time, for all the right reasons.
Again, I think we've seen the managerial incompetence. Okay, let's move on to budgetary incompetence. You missed the deadline to submit a draft defense budget to Congress, which makes it impossible for us to complete our work on the NDAA or appropriations, and makes it more likely you'll receive delays in funding you need for new acquisitions, programs, and other priorities. Additionally, you're blowing money on poorly conceived operations and vanity projects for President Trump, retrofitting the Qatari jet to serve as Air Force One, will cost about $400 million. The parade in D.C. this weekend will cost upwards of $40 million. Your bombing campaign in Yemen cost about $1 billion, and a week later they were having missile strikes in Israel. Your operations in L.A. will cost tens of millions of dollars, and you claim to be cutting costs at the Pentagon, but all I see are wasted dollars better spent addressing our most pressing threats like China. So, Mr. Secretary, what priorities have you cut funding for to pay for these projects?
Ma'am, I would just say your list left off securing the southern border.
So, Mr. Secretary, what priorities have you cut funding for to pay for these projects?
We make trade-offs every day, and I would imagine what we want to spend on is quite different than what the previous administration did.
Well, I think the
Those changes quickly, and they're reflected in this budget, and we're very proud of them.
I think the American people can see why I'm so concerned about this incompetence. Thank you, and I yield back.
This was not a hearing. It was a public demolition. If you believe it peaked too soon, think again. What follows only becomes more explosive. Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill didn't merely criticize Pete Hegseth. She dismantled him completely. Her accusations were not vague or wrapped in diplomatic language. They were direct, incisive, and impossible to overlook. She portrayed the Pentagon not as disorganized or under pressure, but as a chaotic failure at every level operationally, managerially, and financially. She placed the blame squarely on one individual. "Your training at Fox News," she remarked, "may assist you in crafting catchy slogans, but it has not equipped you to manage the Pentagon." In her view, Hegseth transformed dysfunction into sound bites. Behind terms like restoring the warrior ethos and lethality lay a history of mismanagement, confusion, and billions squandered. Then came the first bombshell. She charged Hegseth with a catastrophic blunder during his very first week in office, a mistake so grave it could have cost lives. Reports indicate he misinterpreted a presidential remark, believing Trump intended to cancel all military aid to Ukraine. Without seeking clarification, he ordered crucial shipments to be turned back. No review, no confirmation, just chaos. The outcome was millions of dollars lost, and more critically, frontline Ukrainian soldiers deprived of the essential resources they needed to defend against Russian aggression. When confronted about it, Hegseth deflected, labeling it as fake news and claiming it was ideologically driven reporters. However, the damage had already been inflicted. If it wasn't a mistake, why did the aid resume just days later? This was merely the beginning. Sherrill then focused on his internal leadership, or the lack thereof. Within weeks of taking office, Hegseth abruptly dismissed two of the highest-ranking military leaders in the nation. C.Q. Brown, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, along with Lisa Franchetti, the chief of naval operations. To this day, no explanation has been provided. However, Sherrill made her stance painfully clear. Brown was dismissed due to his race. Franchetti was let go because of her gender. Her statements reverberated through the room. This was not mere conjecture. It was a serious allegation of identity-based purging at the highest echelons of military leadership. Then, silence ensued. Hegseth did not defend the dismissals. He did not refute them. He merely delayed. Almost 4 months later, there is still no successor for Franchetti, as reports indicate that qualified candidates are consistently declining the position, and Congress remains without answers. Therefore, she pressed him again publicly. "When can we expect your nominee for the Chief of Naval Operations?" His reply was, "In due time." But Sherrill was not done. She shifted her focus to the statistics, and the image she created was damning. Hegseth had failed to meet the deadline for submitting the defense budget, a shortcoming that severely hampers Congress's ability to finance essential programs. In the meantime, millions were squandered on what she termed vanity projects for Trump, modifying a private jet in Carter to serve as a makeshift air force. One cost $400 million. A military parade in D.C., $40 million. A week-long bombing operation in Yemen, $1 billion with no strategic advantage. And what about America's primary threats? China, cybersecurity, emerging global conflict zones, all underfunded, all neglected. She concluded her assault with one final, harsh question. "What priorities have you sacrificed to fund these projects?" His response was, "We make trade-offs every day." This was more than just an interrogation. It was a cautionary message. And in the next segment, we have the live footage that substantiates every claim.